They're using the religious site of Windsor Castle. It's over, guys. The UK has fallen. What a strange reaction to have.
I feel that really strengthening.
They look so different to me. Yeah, I guess, man. It's like so much of the free speech crackdowns were done by the Conservatives, while right-wingers were sitting there saying how much they care about it. I agree, it seems like a stupid request. However, yet you don't lose all rights when you get detained. Wait, that's true and based. That's true and based, and they left it. That is literally. Isn't this what they wanted? What? What an insane line of thinking. This is totally insane.
It's no exaggeration to say that Britain
is this a Lotus Eaters video that seems to be saying, based on the framing of the thumbnail and title, it says, "We can't let Putin invade Europe," and has a soy face with a bunch of Muslims in the background. And the title is "Britain is an Occupied Nation." So it seems like the thesis of this video, though I could be wrong based on the contents, is that allowing mass immigration because you have an aging population, need a workforce, is equivalent to being invaded by a hostile military force. So let's take a look. Let's see what they've got to say. Maybe they don't say that. I'll reserve judgment. Okay, let's have a look.
An occupied nation. You'd get that impression if you look around the aesthetics of the UK, spelled Y-O-O-K-A-Y, especially in what?
Not the case. If you go to like the poorest parts of East London, yeah, it's like that. You go to the poorest parts of Birmingham, yeah, it's like that. But you go to any countryside place, any decent part of a city, it's still got British architecture. It still looks like Britain. It's very, it's completely unchanged. You go to completely run-down parts of Birmingham and East London, yeah, you'll see a lot of like Muslim posters, like in Arabic, and shops that have names in Arabic and all this sort of. Yeah, that is a thing. But pretty much everywhere else still, is totally unchanged.
All of our politicians and state heads are calling the holy month of Ramadan. You'd be forgiven if you thought this was a Christian country, because they're certainly not treating it this way. But if you'd like to rediscover your Christian roots, you can read my essay in this latest edition of Islander, and this is one of the physical...
We will not be reading your
I don't know if they've
essay.
got them in hand in the States, but I know that the distributor has got it over to the States to be delivered from there.
Fantastic. And that's half the battle.
Yes, very much so. If you're in Australia, we don't know when you'll be getting that. Hopefully you can read it upside down. Anyway, as we crack on with the fall of our great country, I thought we'd go through, and some of this was mentioned yesterday on the podcast that you were on, Harry, but I thought we'd go through the figureheads that are complicit in the transformation of Britain into a caliphate, who are currently leading the government. And we'll begin with this wonderful clip of Muslims observing Ramadan in Windsor Castle.
Oh, no. Windsor Castle, famous religious site.
For that.
I was the one crying.
There's a big problem here, guys. Islam has replaced Christianity. They're using the religious site of Windsor Castle to do Ramadan. It's over, guys. The UK has fallen.
Yeah, so that's in Windsor Palace. We are completely ideologically conquered. Now, if you're wondering how this happened...
We're completely ideologically conquered because on one day, there were some Muslims in a building doing Ramadan.
I did see this rather amusing tweet. We can't possibly let Putin invade Europe, say the same people that allowed this to happen. If you're wondering who's running these events, we have some details from the BBC. This amazing atmosphere at the Windsor Castle Iftar event. Someone phoned Kundiger up for the UK Twitter account. This says, on Sunday, the past Sunday, more than 350 people gathered in St George's Hall in Windsor Castle to break their Ramadan fast. Simon Maples, the Visitor Operations Director at Windsor Castle, Quisling, said the king had been championing religious diversity and encouraging interfaith conversation for many years, something you'll be talking about later, Luca. The free event, attended by all, I presume, though it looks conspicuously...
Well, okay, so does Windsor Castle not belong to the king? It's not his castle. He can't invite some Muslims around. What's the big problem?
capital D diverse, but not very diverse in terms of multiple people attending. But there you go. The free event was organised by London-based charity Ramadan Tent Project. Ramadan Tent Project, for those who don't know, have got lots of partners. So this is their trustee page. But if you scroll down to where they've been operating, there's a very interesting list of people that have hosted them.
As you're just scrolling, I can tell I have so much in common with these people.
Quite, yeah. They feel that we're really strengthening the country at our expense. So some of their partners include the Royal Albert Hall, the British Library, Westminster Abbey.
There's no way I could ever have anything in common with a Muslim. Dude, like, what is this reaction? You just saw some Muslim faces as you were scrolling down the page. Like, oh yeah, I've got so much in common with these people. What do you mean? Yeah, you probably do have quite a lot in common with these people. Yeah, sure, you're different religions, and you're a different ethnicity. You might like a lot of the same TV shows. You might have similar attitudes towards your family. There's probably a lot of things you do agree with this guy on. Yeah. He's a fucking Westerner.
Not very diverse in terms of multiple people attending, but there you go. The free event was organised by London-based charity Ramadan Tent Project. Ramadan Tent Project, for those who don't know, have got lots of partners. So this is their trustee page. But if you scroll
you think
down...
these guys aren't watching Breaking Bad? You think these guys aren't? I don't even know. Like, it's just so ridiculous. But I've got so much in common with these people, dude. They're fucking living in Britain. I don't.
To where they've been operating, there's a very interesting list of people that have hosted them.
As you're just scrolling, I can tell I have so much in common with these people.
What a strange reaction to have.
I feel that we're really strengthening.
They look so different to me. Yeah, I guess, man. Okay.
Our expense. So some of their partners include the Royal Albert Hall, the British Library, Westminster Abbey,
Bradford, just the city of Bradford, because of course.
The cousin marriage capital of the UK, the Victoria and Albert Museum, Shakespeare's Globe, because I'm sure he'd be happy to see that happening. The
I don't
FA.
know if you've seen the rubbish that they're putting on there these days, so.
And they do non-binary.
They do incredibly diverse.
Joan of Arc.
Shakespeare and
yeah, I'm sure Shakespeare would have been delighted if you were to transport him.
I would just like to point out that as much as these guys probably complain about DEI, this guy bottom right is the most clear-cut case of British DEI. A guy who looks like this should not be able to get a job in media on camera. The only reason he does is because he's so English.
Of course, and Bradford and Coventry Cathedral. So
the cathedral.
The cathedrals.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and Camden Council. Camden Council, by the way, adopted the Islamophobia definition, and they said that to characterise Muslims as sex groomers should be illegal.
And Cambridge Central Mosque, because that's what Cambridge was missing.
Well, there are other parts of Cambridge as well. Like the university itself was partnering with it. We've now got Saudi Arabian or UAE ambassadors and members that have said, oh, there's basically like a thing.
Dude, the sideburns are just fucking obscene.
Which is essentially an Islamist training camp that you guys just haven't banned. We've banned it in our country, in the UAE, because we know exactly what types of Muslim Brotherhood guys are running that. You idiots let it operate.
Labour were like, not on our watch.
Well, the Conservative government were told in 2015, hey, ban the Muslim Brotherhood, and guess what? They didn't ban the Muslim Brotherhood. Wonder why. Speaking of Parliament betraying us, there was an iftar in Parliament as well. Yeah, that's the main members of our government. For those who don't know some of these figures, I mean, obviously, Keir Starmer's up front, grinning as his country is sold down the river. This is the Justice Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who we'll be talking about in a moment. This is Sarah Owen MP, a sort of obscure figure, but we're going to talk about her in a second, who has been sort of nexus of all of this for the last how many years, and she's quite the quiet power broker in the background. And of course, Wes Streeting here, the former Stonewall activist who is now the health...
Wait, dude, how are you even going to claim that Labour MPs have been the nexus of this stuff? Like pointing out Wes Streeting and shit. Labour MPs have been the nexus of mass immigration for years. The Tories have been in power for the last 14 fucking years. What is this? What did the Labour have to do with it? What do Labour MPs have to do with it? How can they be the next of it for the last how many years? I love to hear the argument here.
Secretary and eyeing up Keir Starmer's shoulder blades to plunge.
It's just they need to engage, and they never will because it's just worthless culture war slop like content. They need to engage with the reality. When you have an aging population, you need to do one of three things at least. And I know which one they'd say cut entitlements. But you need to do one of three things. You need to either cut entitlements massively, raise taxes massively, or start mass immigration. That's the reality. That's what you need. Policies to make people have more kids don't tend to work. Not a lot of good evidence that policies try and make people have more kids work. It's just the case that when people get rich and educated, they stop having kids. they stop having kids. So you need to do one of those three things to try and improve this. They would probably just say, gut the welfare state, to be fair. They would probably say, no mass immigration, no higher taxes, gut the welfare state, gut everything that would help British people. But they won't say that explicitly a lot of the time because they want to essentially format it in such a way where they can make this claim that, oh, if we stopped helping all these immigrants, we could help British people. But that's just not true. It's just clearly not true. Like, you can't just simply stop mass immigration, not raise taxes, and not cut entitlements with an aging population. Stuff just gets more and more expensive, and your economic output gets lower and lower.
To it eventually. Brutus in Waiting, Res Streeting, who is also an interesting figure, despite being a gay man and self-professed Christian in this thread. A bit wobbly. He's a key figure in the Islamization of the UK. So let's start with Sarah Owen, because she's just a Muslim activist. This breaks in Arab news. Love getting my headline.
That's why the Tories didn't stop it, by the way. That's why every Conservative government gets in. Every Conservative party gets in. And they never do anything about it. Because they know this reality. They know the reality. That's why they never stop mass immigration.
From here, she wants to criminalise the
You're out of touch, Kuihman. Sargon's video letter advising Farage on how to become Prime Minister is the real political activism Britain has needed for years.
What? This, dear Mr. Farage. Oh my god.
possession of an image of a woman, if she usually wears a headscarf, so hijab, niqab, burqa, without wearing it on your phone, and she compares it to possessing child porn. Yeah. So if you have an image of a woman without her hijab on your phone, you will be treated as if you have child porn, which I presume means that you won't actually
Wait, what? What's this about?
Niqab, burqa, without wearing it on your phone, and she compares it to possessing child porn. Yeah. So if you have an image of a woman without her
Okay,
burqa,
let me actually. Non-consensual possession of images of Muslim. Oh my god, women without offense. MPs in the UK have proposed making it a criminal offence to possess images of Muslim women not wearing hijabs without their consent. It's a retarded law. Suggestion was made in the report by the House of Commons Women Equality Committee, which said such photos should constitute non-consensual intimate images. The thing is, I understand the argument. It's going to be that you can cause harm to the Muslim women by basically, like using it to weaponize the culture against them, I would imagine, right? The MP said current legal definitions such images include people being partially or fully nude or engaging in behavior such as sexual activity or using the bathroom. What said abuse can also include material that's considered culturally intimate for the victim, such as a Muslim woman being pictured without a hijab. Non-consensual intimate image abuse is not always limited to sexually explicit content. For example, in some cultures, countries, or religion, sharing a photograph of someone without their religious clothing or without their armor on the person can be disastrous for the victim. We welcome the government's proposals to make creating non-consensual intimate images an offence, but a legal gap remains. The government should bring forward amendments to the crime policing bill as well as creation offence. This ensures non-consensual intimate images receive the same legal treatment as child sexual abuse material. Okay, she's not... Okay, this is a total bastardization of what she actually said here, isn't it? This is a total bastardization. Because what she said, it's saying this ensures non-consensual intimate images receives the same legal treatment as child sexual abuse material. But she's talking about non-consensual intimate images as a whole in comparison to child sexual abuse material. This isn't specifically about the idea of possessing images of a Muslim woman without her headscarf or whatever, hijab. But she's just saying she wants that to be qualified under the intimate images thing. Why should someone be allowed to have a picture of a woman without an article of clothing if she doesn't want it? Well, if it's taken in public? I understand photographing someone privately where someone has an expectation of privacy without their consent. I think that's probably wrong anyway. Photographing someone, or like if there's an expectation of privacy on the transfer of the image or whatever, obviously that's wrong. Breaking an expectation of privacy is wrong, pretty much, you know, across the board, unless you've got a good justification for it. I don't know. I don't know what the law is, to be honest. I don't have an understanding of what the intimate images law is. I think that's what my position would be. Okay, I'm not going to, I can't be bothered to read through all the different laws that are associated with this and what the report recommended. But my position would be, if you have an expectation of privacy, a reasonable expectation of privacy, and someone is recording or photographing you without consent, in some kind of intimate way, without any article of clothing that you weren't comfortable with, whether it's just like you have a shirt off, you have your hijab off, or whatever, yeah, that's wrong. That they shouldn't do that. Just because, obviously, you're in a place where you think you will be, safe, and then they break that safety, right? Everyone should be able to, be in their bedroom and know they're not being recorded. I think that's pretty reasonable. But the idea that if there's a Muslim woman in public without a hijab, and that is photographed and you possess that, that would be illegal. That's absurd to me. That's totally absurd. But I think just in general, if there is a decent expectation of privacy, and you are taking some kind of image that could be considered intimate in any way, yeah, that's going to be wrong. And even damaging in like a... Because, like, let's say it's not intimate. Well, let's say someone's in a place where they have an expectation of privacy, and they're not, like, engaged in, like, sexual activity or anything, but they're doing something that could identify them as gay, and you collect evidence of that. Well, I mean, you probably, like, that's probably wrong, right? You probably shouldn't be able to get blackmail on this person while they're in a place where they expect to be private. Okay, Dan, I will just ban you until you come back with money. That's just how it's going to keep going.
Wearing it on your phone, and she compares it to possessing child porn. Yeah. So if you have an image of a woman without her hijab on your phone, you will be treated as if you have child porn, which I presume means that you won't actually spend any time in prison, given how lenient the sentences are for people like Hugh Edwards who have Class A material.
A suspended sentence, but that's not what she's going for, really.
No.
So what she's saying is that she wants it to be worse than owning child porn.
Wait, where are you getting that from? Wait, dude, this is so dumb. So we've totally butchered the quote in the first place, where she's saying basically that under the law, non-consensual intimate imagery should be treated similarly to child porn. It should be like, we should see this as a criminal offense that is like some kind of sex offense or something. And now he's taking it a step further, and he's saying, no, she thinks actually this specific example that she didn't say in the actual quote, she actually thinks that should be worse than child porn. Okay.
Pornography.
Very
Yes,
intelligent stuff here.
Guidelines, which we'll mention in a second. The kinds of people that will be prosecuted for this and actually see jail time for it will also be ethnically and religiously two-tier. This is for a report from the Women and Equalities Committee. Abolish.
Wait, so where are we getting the idea this is going to be two-tier? When has the two-tier claim ever been substantiated through anything other than, oh, well, here's an example. Like, is there any data that supports the two-tier? Is there any report that's been done that supports the idea of two-tier policing or two-tier justice in any way that isn't actually in favor of white Brits.
And it says, abuse can also include material that is considered culturally intimate for the victim, such as a Muslim woman being pictured without her hijab. Non-consensual intimate image abuse, this is what's being classified as, is a deeply personal crime that can have life-changing and life-threatening consequences. This ensures non-consensual intimate images receive the same legal treatment as child sexual abuse material. If you think I'm exaggerating, or if you think she's exaggerating in her presentation of the bill, we have it here, and it says, while the Online Safety Act, Trojan horse bill that it was, brought in by the Conservatives, defines an intimate state as engaging in a sexual act.
I love that they will acknowledge that the Conservatives brought half this shit in, but never actually place blame on them, as long as they can put it on Labour. It's like so much of their free speech crackdowns were done by the Conservatives, while right-wingers were sitting there saying how much they care about it. Like, huge police powers to shut down protests. Like, what's the, they brought in that one law that's like, what is it, section something? It's Pathos in jail, no. The one that's basically like made it total discretion about whether they shut down the protests. What is it? Policing. Fuck, what was it called? Tory Police Powers Bill. Protest. The Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act expanded powers to restrict protests.
Nudity or toileting, non-consensual image abuse can also include material that is considered culturally intimate for the victim, such as a Muslim woman being pictured without her hijab. Ofcom's current enforcement powers are too slow and not designed to help individuals get NCII images on non-compliant websites taken down. In such circumstances, access to those sites should be blocked. For internet infrastructure providers to take this threat seriously and block access to websites that refuse to comply, NCII...
Yeah, and pretty much, you know, all the videos that you see of people getting warned by police for tweets and shit, that's all under Tories. Yeah, it's just like, the last 14 years, anything you saw about free speech crackdowns in Britain was all under the Tories.
It should be brought in line with child sexual abuse material. So, let's put it this way. If Elon Musk refuses to enforce this law, she is saying that X should be shut down, as if it had child porn on it. Yeah, so we've got just a blasphemy law governing our social media.
Well, I mean, X has child porn on it, and it's not being shut down. In fact, Elon Musk unbans people who post child porn. He explicitly, someone does it, they get banned for it, and then he unbans them. Who's that guy again? That propagandist? Has that massive account that was just posting, like... Yeah, Dom Lucre. I don't know how the fuck you say it.
Companies here in the UK. JD Vance was obviously right, and Keir Starmer lied to his face. Now, I can't help but notice this just happened a couple of weeks after this. So the police retook a mugshot because an ISIS terrorist was unhappy that it was taken without her wearing a niqab. I mean, the original mugshot's here, just so we can show her face, by the way, because one, that's not been brought into law yet. Two, she's a terrorist, you should know what she looks like, she's an awful human being. The police decided, on the advice of her KC, her human rights lawyer barrister, this caused her considerable distress, so we're concerned about the distress of the terrorist, and they decided to do a mugshot with her dressed like a ninja.
Concerned about the distress of the terrorist. Yeah, people don't lose their human rights when you detain them. Now, I understand this, on first look, seems like a very stupid thing to do. The idea that terrorists would have their mugshots taken in the niqab. However, if they already have the photo of her without it, then I don't really see what the big deal is. They already have a photo of her lined up without it on. They know who she is. They've got her face. Like, I agree. It seems like a stupid request. However, yet you don't lose all rights when you get detained. So if they can very easily get rid of a complaint by doing like a small thing like this, I mean, maybe it's worth it. Like what's the alternative? How do we know that? So let's say that this is coming from a lawyer. This is a request based on her rights. How do we know that just retaking this mugshot and giving it to her and being like, "Look, here you go," isn't going to cost the police way less than this lawyer launching some appeal or some case through some human rights tribunal or whatever, or so, you know, some prisoners' rights tribunal, and then dragging that out. Could it not potentially be cheaper for the state and the police to just take the photo here? Like, there's so many obvious explanations that could be the case for this photo, but they don't even bother interrogating any of them. It is like the most low IQ, knee-jerk, like, oh, well, doesn't this look fucking stupid? It's like, it could be stupid. I don't know. It really could be stupid. It looks stupid to me. But why would you be so sure of it with no research? Especially after the last quote was just, like, totally butchered.
Has Cunley got this one yet? Because this is very UK.
This is very, very UK. Get on it. Some details here.
Have you seen this woman? Seen a couple dozen of her down the road, actually.
I'm pretty sure I had about 8 of her on a chessboard once.
Yeah.
So this is Farishta Jamee. She's 36. She was found guilty of terrorism offences for planning to fly to Afghanistan to join Islamic State. She's a mother of 4, and she planned for her children to become martyrs for Islamic State and was described in court as an observant Muslim. This is something that Palestinians do, by the way. So what they do is they have at least 2 sons. They have one for the family, one for the cause. So they raise one of them to be suicide bombers. This is the culture that we're importing from Muslim countries.
How do you reckon they pick? Do you reckon it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Do they have to go through a series of challenges? Or is it just luck of the draw?
One for the family, one for the cause. In Islamic State. She's a mother of 4, and she planned for her children to become martyrs for Islamic State and was described in court as an observant Muslim. This is something that Palestinians do, by the way. So what they do is they have at least 2 sons. They have one for the family, one for the cause. So they raise one of them to be suicide bombers. This is the culture that we're importing from Muslim countries.
How do you reckon they pick? Do you reckon it's like eeny, meeny, miny, mo? Do they have to go through a series of challenges?
Yeah, that's what all Palestinians do. Yeah, they all do that. All Palestinians do that, by the way, guys. It's obviously that's not what they're saying. They're saying it's a dominant part of the culture or something, but are we even taking in fucking Gazans? Are we taking in Gazans right now? Are all the Gazans coming over? Are they making it here?
Or is it just luck of the draw?
Pull straws, pull detonators.
Yeah.
Pull pins. Yeah. It's like the magpie rhyme, like 1 for sorrow, 2 for explosions, etc. So this is Michelle Healy, KC. She was prosecuting. She told the court that Jamee made plans to take her family to Afghanistan to join Islamic State. She saved £1,200, probably in social housing funds, to fund the flights, and also shared extremist material.
So that's obviously a very specifically Palestinian thing. Like they're essentially, they've attacked, but they have been right next to a kind of hostile. They attack a lot, but there is a very hostile, looming, all-powerful, highly advanced state that's kind of like been raping them for the last 60-odd years minimum. So I understand why their culture would kind of develop into a sort of a fighting culture where it's like we have to fight and scrap to survive. And yeah, you don't want to just be indiscriminately bringing in a bunch of people that are going to fight and scrap to survive in your own country. But that's not what everyone's like, and you can go through vetting processes and just make sure that these people are integrated properly into, the rest of British society. We don't know what we bring over Palestinians, but when you bring over Muslims, you can try and integrate. That's one of the biggest problems with immigration in the UK. It's not necessarily that there is immigration. We kind of need immigration to keep the job market functioning. However, what has happened is ethnic enclaves have been made where there are just isolated communities that the police struggle to get involved with, that social services struggle to get involved with, because there's a huge language barrier, huge culture barrier, and they have a culture of like silence and not speaking to anyone on the outside. There are huge problems that come from that. But that's not just immigration. That's like a specific lack of programs to get these people integrated and assimilated to British culture instead of just, making Little Mecca,
on social media. Very concerned about cracking down on photos of this woman without her hijab on social media, not so much about Islamic State propaganda. Sarah Owen. West Midlands Police originally released this image, here, just to go back to it, showing her full face and hair, but then the second photo that showed her in a niqab after Matthew Brooke, her barrister, told Leicester Crown Court that she had experienced considerable distress because of the photograph showing her full face. Reports of the verdicts yesterday used an image of my client released by the police in which her head wasn't covered. The police are going to release a different image. We request that is used instead. Don't care, didn't ask, plus you're a terrorist.
Sorry, she got a nose piercing. It looks like she's got a nose piercing.
Hello.
Did she have to take the niqab off for the nose piercing? If your face is covered 95% of the time, what's the point in having a nose piercing?
No one else questions.
That's the most confusing part about all of this. Maybe, and this is just a suggestion, right? This is just, maybe she didn't want her face out there and said, oh no, I'm so distressed. Oh, quick, get me with my niqab on.
Wait, but her face is out there.
Covered.
Wait. But you have her face is out there. You have her face. What do you mean she didn't want her face out there? How does this change her face being out there? They haven't scrubbed this photo. This photo hasn't disappeared. You've got it on your screen right now. It's in your video.
The police are going to release a different image. We request that that is used instead. Don't care, didn't ask, plus you're a terrorist.
Sorry, she got a nose piercing. It looks like she's got a nose piercing.
Hello?
Did she have to take the niqab off for the nose piercing? If your face is covered 95% of the time, what's the point in having a nose piercing?
No one else questions?
Yeah, was there a nose piercing?
Don't care, didn't ask, plus you're a terrorist.
Sorry, she got a nose piercing.
Request that that is used instead.
Could be, I think it's a mole. I think he's hitting. I think it's just a mole or something.
Don't care, didn't ask, plus you're a terrorist.
Sorry, she got a nose piercing. It looks like she's got a nose piercing.
Hello?
Did she have to take the niqab off for the nose piercing? If your face is covered 95% of the time, what's the point in having a nose piercing?
No one else questions?
That's the most confusing part about all of this. Maybe, and this is just a suggestion, right? This is just, maybe she didn't want her face out there and say, oh no, I'm so distressed. Oh, quick, get me with my niqab on.
Are you implying that a terrorist might game the system and lie so that her face is not out there?
Well, that depends. Is it illegal for me to suggest that?
I don't think so. She's been convicted.
Oh, all right, okay, then yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's so difficult to tell in this country.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But meanwhile, you've got Led by Donkeys, Hope Not Hate. Like, this is fine. The problem is the people with the problem with this.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's funny you mentioned Hope Not Hate, actually, because who is Sarah Owen? Sarah Owen was the vice chair of Hope Not Hate's parliamentary group.
It's all coming together.
Yeah, quite. So she did this. She registered on the 14th of September 2020, and then this ended on the 30th.
Hope Not Hate is just like one of their boogeymen, by the way. This is just like because they went after Tommy Robinson and shit. This is, I'm pretty sure, Lauren Southern's cameraman and shit defected to Hope Not Hate after Tommy Robinson totally fucked him over. I think that was the story. The Cowland guy.
1st of July 2023. What do you notice about that date? What happened late July?
Kind of group is it? It's just like right-wing watch or anything like that. It just like, you know, it is like they do exposés and advocate for legislation against like hate groups and shit like that, you know? Yes, a soy non-government organization, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, 2024 I'm thinking.
I was going to say 2024
there we go.
is the year that you might be thinking.
Yeah, I am thinking of that. The reason I'm thinking of that is because in August 2024, she did this. 12th of August 2024, midst of the riots, the MP for Luton North invited Hope Not Hate to Parliament. Now, the reason this is archived is because she's now deleted this.
Big surprise.
How curious. Perhaps it had something to do with Nick Lowles, the head of Hope Not Hate, repeatedly inciting violence during the summer riots, having never been held accountable for this. Now, Hope Not Hate, as we'll be discussing soon, are dying in the doldrums since the cancellation of US aid, but they're getting in-kind contributions by a government willing to do their bidding, with an Islamophobia blasphemy council. Yet again, occupied nation, particularly by Islamic activists in government institutions. And this is a blasphemy council set up under the Department for Communities, Levelling Up and Housing by Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner, you know, the same woman that had a struggle session in a mosque right before the election saying, please, I'll make a ceasefire in Gaza my top priority, because that matters to northern constituents, doesn't it? This was originally going to use the All-Party Parliamentary Group on British Muslims definition, which is, and I quote, Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Now, it's purposefully self-referential.
Sunni Muslimness, Shia Muslimness, just general Muslim,
just
Musliminess.
Platonic Muslimness.
Ah.
Yes. It's a
Oh, is that really that hard one? You really need that specified? Like, oh, is it all Muslimness? Is it Shia Muslimness? Or what are you fucking talking about, dude? Like some of the responses they give are just like so low IQ if you even like listen.
It's expressions of Muslimness.
They just like don't even engage. It's like, oh, Shia Muslimness, Sunni Muslimness. Like, what the fuck are you on about? Yeah, it's the idea of hating Muslims. Islamophobia is the idea of hating Muslims. It's hating the followers of Islam. Irrational hatred of the followers of Islam. Now, you could argue we've got irrational hatred. That's a whole different conversation.
Perceived Muslimness. Now, it's purposefully.
Pretending to not understand simple stuff certainly makes these guys look clever. Yeah, it's really working.
Self-referential.
It actually does work on, like, total retards. That's the thing. Like, actual drones, this does work on. Look at this guy's face. Is this guy just not like the weirdest looking fuck in the world? It's so strange.
Muslimness, Shia Muslimness, just general Muslim, Musliminess.
Platonic Muslimness. Yes. It's the same sort of thing as, you know, a trans woman is a woman who identifies as a woman, or Fraser Nelson's definition of the English. It's purposely self-referential.
What? a trans woman is a woman who identifies as a woman. What? Nobody has ever given that definition of trans woman. I think everyone would say a trans woman is a biological male who identifies as a woman. That's what a trans woman is.
Referential just to catch all us critics in a broad enough net and ensnare us. What's interesting is it was written originally by Wes Streeting and Hope Not Hate. So you would expect them to have used this definition. The problem is the Parliamentary Undersecretary for Faith said it kind of violates the Equality Act, so we're not going to use this. Instead, we're just going to, rather than abandon the attempt to criminalise Islamic blasphemy, we're just going to create a new definition that can get you persecuted for it instead. One of the members of this council was a chap called Curry Asim, as I've mentioned on this podcast before. He's a senior imam at a mosque in Leeds, and he's the trustee of Hope Not Hate's charitable organisation. So even if they're losing money, they're deeply embedding themselves into the Labour government. Now let's look at who will enforce this definition. This is Justice Secretary Shabana Mahmood, who is at the Iftar in Parliament, and she's tweeted out, there will never be a two-tier sentencing approach under the Labour government. Why would she feel the need to tweet this out? Because I was told by Raiku, the Home Office's propaganda department, that two-tier policing is a conspiracy theory. I was told by the same thing, by the way, by Sarah Khan, whose sister who used to lead Raiku, in a report with Hope Not Hate last December that she issued saying it's a conspiracy theory. Why would she possibly need to say this?
Well, I mean, for one, let's be accurate. This is not two-tier. This is two-tier sentencing.
Yes,
completely different, and that's because there were new sentencing guidelines recommending that people of religious and ethnic minorities just get off easy, and women as well.
Yeah, it's written in here somewhere.
If you
Where's this from?
Here we go.
There you are.
One or more of the following may apply to the offender. So,
if you're female, if you're from an ethnic minority.
Wait, what? They've given no context here. This is like cutting in. A pre-sentence report. This doesn't sound like an easier... Okay, let me see this. When considering a community or custodial sentence, the court must request and consider a pre-sentence report before forming an opinion on the sentence, unless it considers that it is unnecessary. Section 30 of the Sentencing Code. A pre-sentence report may also be requested by a legal defense representative as part of the before plea protocol. A pre-sentence report can be pivotal in helping the court decide whether to impose a custodial or community order and, where relevant, what particular requirements or combination of requirements are most suitable for an individual offender on either a community order or a suspended custodial sentence. PCRs are necessary in all cases that would benefit from an assessment of one or more of the following: the offender's dangerousness and risk of harm, the nature and causes of the offender's behaviour, the offender's personal circumstances, and any factors that may be helpful to the court in considering the offender's suitability for different sentences or requirements. A pre-sentence report may be unnecessary if the court considers that it has enough information about the offence and the offender. So at no point does this say, if you're a woman, you'll get out of prison easier. That's not what this says. What it says is, if you fulfill some amount of criteria, or one of these criteria, then they will make a report to consider all the factors in the case to make sure they're making the right decision. I assume the point of this is to combat an existing systemic bias that exists within sentencing, probably against ethnic minorities and women. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. I'm just taking a wild fucking guess here. But that's what I probably think. Unless they can present some kind of evidence that there's a history of systemic bias against white British people, white British men in the court system, which I've never seen evidence of at any point. So let's see this. A pre-sentence report would normally be considered necessary if the offender belongs to one or more of the following cohorts: at risk of first custodial sentence and or at risk of a custodial sentence of 2 years or less. So, literally anyone who is on their first offence gets a pre-sentence report. Anyone who is on their first offence, it is considered necessary to make a PSR. So, anyone, not first offence, sorry, at risk of first custodial sentence. So, at risk of going to prison. At risk of going to prison. that you have to make a PSR. If it's their first time being at risk of going to prison, you have to make a PSR. So it's already a huge amount of people. A young adult, typically 18 to 25 years, already a huge amount of criminals that have to get a pre-sentence report. So it's not just women and minorities at all. Female. So again, a huge cohort. Not a huge cohort in terms of percentage, but you know what I mean, in terms of population. From an ethnic minority, cultural minority, and or faith minority community. So there we go. Pregnant or postnatal. Sole or primary carer for dependent relatives. Or if the court considers that one or more of the following may apply to the offender. Has disclosed that they're transgender. Has or may have any addiction issues. Has or may have a serious chronic medical condition or physical disability or mental ill health, learning disabilities, including developmental disorders and neurodiverse conditions, or brain injury/damage. Or the court considers that the offender is, or there is a risk they might have been, a victim of domestic abuse, physical or sexual abuse, violent or threatening behavior, coercive or controlling behavior, economic, psychological, emotional, or any other abuse, modern slavery or trafficking, or coercion, grooming, intimidation, or exploitation. So, I mean, this is just a very broad protocol saying, look, if there's any reason to suspect that there might be some kind of bias in the sentence, or that maybe, you know, they're like a first offender, or like any reason to have any kind of apprehension about what the judgment might be, make a report and double check it. What's the problem? What are we upset about? How is this a bad policy? I can imagine there are ways it could end up bad. Like, let's say these PSRs get generated at a disproportionate rate for ethnic minorities, and then that leads to a bias in the sentencing where they're double-checking sentencing and end up reducing it, and then ethnic minorities end up getting lower sentences for the same crimes as the majority population or native population, whatever. Yeah, there are ways that can be the case. But unless you show me data actually like saying, oh, look, here's how the sentencing is planned out, why would I think this is a bad policy? Why would I ever think this is a bad policy? It seems totally reasonable. I would have to say that it is a bad policy in practice. Because in theory, it's a totally fine policy.
Keep going. I think it's...
Here we go.
There you are.
One or more of the following may apply to the offender. So
if you're female, if you're from an ethnic minority, cultural minority...
Yeah, what if one or more applies what? You've presented this as though you will get a lighter sentence. That's not what this is saying.
Ethnic minorities, just get it off easy. Just get it off easy, and women as well.
Yeah, it's written in here somewhere.
So that's not what's here,
Here
is
we
it?
go.
At all?
One or more of the following may apply to the offender. So
if you're female, if you're from an ethnic minority, cultural minority...
transgender.
Or a faith minority community. So if you're black, trans, or Muslim, or a woman, you might have a reduced sentence. Cultural minority as well.
Or 18 to 25, or at risk of your first custodial sentence. And it's not might get a lighter sentence. It's you should do a report and make sure you've evaluated it properly. The sentence might go up. Yeah, or mentally ill, or yeah, or it's enslaved. Like, your sentence might go up. They might do the report and be like, oh, this person's more dangerous than we realized when initially thinking about a sentence. Let's turn it up a bit. Let's give them a harsher sentence. That might be the case. It doesn't say it goes either way. It's not giving a prescription. It's just saying, do a report. Double check. What's the problem? Yet thorough processes for deciding sentences and leaving less of it up to vibes and discretion, probably a good thing. I'm on board with that.
Cultural minority. So if I start calling myself pagan, like I worship Woden and I go out to the woods on the weekends to conduct rituals, that's a cultural minority.
No, you'll be put in the state of hate report, I'm afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
It's remarkable as well, isn't it, though, about cultural minority. It's like, well, if you're such a cultural minority, why do you have such cultural dominance? You have such legal, social, and cultural power, despite being, what, 6, 7, 8% of the population? Something like that?
Yeah, it's funny how...
Pretty much everyone gets a report, unless you are, like, the absolute, every majority population, zero mental health problems or evidence of mental health problems or evidence of addiction. Late into your, like, you know, you're like middle-aged almost, or approaching middle-aged, and you've been to prison before. Like, and I think there might even be more qualifiers than that. Like, we're talking about this is like purely career criminals at this point that we're talking about.
Said oppressed minorities have the entire legal system, the weapons of the state, and the funds of the taxpayer reconfigured around meeting their
The criteria are so broad, it encompasses so many fucking people.
Needs. Almost like the majority of this country are being put under the boot heel of the state for their benefit. So Shabana Mahmood denounced this, even though she's been funding the Sentencing Council set up as another quango under the Tory government, of course. One of her assistants was sitting in on the meeting and raised 0 objections, and she's saying she won't adopt this, but I think that she actually doesn't want to adopt this because this is just saying quite out loud. It's aroused so much ire that they can't defend it. However, it is funny because one of her colleagues in the Labour front bench actually recommended this. Turns out this comes from the Lammy report. This entire thing comes from David Lammy's report. Yeah. So the council went ahead with the changes, quote, despite being told by magistrates during a consultation on the reforms the guidance was biased and conflicts with equality in sentencing, because
Show me this article.
were influenced by several sources of research, including the 2017 David Lammy report. The review found widespread racial discrimination in the justice system.
They've been finding that for decades.
Wait. So what's the problem? The report found evidence that there was bias against minorities in the criminal justice system, so they implemented a process where you have to do a report if there's any question about the sentencing to evaluate it. You realize this just completely contradicts the two-tier narrative that white people get treated worse, right? That's the whole point here. Yeah, they're not even engaging with that. Like, engage with the report. Engage with whatever findings they have in this report. Engage with that. If you're saying there's a two-tier system, or they're trying to make a two-tier system, you have to engage with the data as it stands and make that determination.
Decades, and apparently the more you keep finding it, the less anything is done about it to fix it, even though they keep changing all of the rules so that minorities can just get away with things.
I'm just going to go off the comments.
That's literally not what that said. How fucking retarded do you have to be? This is... Are they retarded or dishonest? I actually can't tell. I can't tell if they're actually that dumb that they don't understand what that page means, or if they're just so dishonest that they've read it and they're just completely ignoring it. Ignoring the fact that it's literally just writing a report. It doesn't make any prescription.
2010 by noted racist David Lammy that says that it's mainly black boys doing all the stabbings and it's because they don't have dads. I think that would be behind the discrepancy.
Wait, that's true and based. That's true and based, and a lefty. That is literally... Isn't this what they wanted? Didn't they want liberals to engage with the fact that, yeah, black people do commit more crime? For whatever reason, obviously socioeconomic standards, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, all that. Isn't that what they wanted? David Lammy's doing what you wanted. He's saying, yeah, black people do be committing crime and shit. Yeah, that's true. It's obviously, it's not their fault. I love all minorities. It's never their fault. All minorities are beautiful and perfect, and it's never their fault they do anything. However, they do be doing crimes and shit. That is true. So David Lammy's spitting there. Let's be serious.
Discrimination in the justice system.
They've been finding that for decades, and apparently the more you keep finding it, the less anything is done about it to fix it, even though they keep changing all of the rules so that
Muslims too
minorities can just get away with things.
I'm just going to go off the comments in, I think it was 2010, by noted racist David Lammy that says that it's mainly black boys doing all the stabbings and it's because they don't have dads. I think that would be behind the discrepancies in sentencing.
That's not true. They're not black boys. They're just boys and men.
Yes, yes.
Wait, but why would there be... Okay, but... does he not realize it's not discrepancy? That wouldn't cause discrepancies of sentencing. Just because a lot of black kids are doing stabbings shouldn't mean that there's a discrepancy in the sentencing for a stabbing if you're black versus if you're white. Just because that racial group does it more doesn't mean the individual should be punished for the actions of the racial group as a collective. What? What an insane line of thinking. This is totally insane.
Widespread racial discrimination in the justice system.
Yes. Retards like this genuinely believe that Britain has a two-tier justice system that benefits benefits minorities and Muslims and black people over white British people. They think that white British people get the raw end of the deal in the justice system. That's what they genuinely claim to believe.
Been finding that for decades, and apparently the more you keep finding it, the less anything is done about it to fix it, even though they keep changing
Never been a single piece of data to support this, by the way. They just do like the most dishonest Facebook memes in the world, where they're like, this guy got sent to prison for 2 million years for posting something on Facebook, and this guy raped a 16-year-old and he got 2 years. And then you look into it more and it's like, or a 15-year-old, let's say, the age of consent is technically 16 here. You look into it more and the Muslim guy who raped a 15-year-old was like 18 when it happened and got like 2 years plus some fucking community service or some shit. And then you look into the sticker guy and it turns out he was running like a far-right Telegram group chat where they were organizing to burn down a hotel. And he got like, you know, like a few years and then a suspended time or something, or out on good behavior or some shit. But the actual sentence was longer. It's always some shit like that every time. Every time. They never even have like good anecdotes. They never even have like a good single example. It's always dishonestly presented in every time I've seen it. And they never have data. It's never data.
All of the rules so that minorities can just get away with things.
I'm just going to go off the comments in, I think it was 2010, by noted racist David Lammy that says that it's mainly black boys doing all the stabbings and it's because they don't have dads. I think that would be behind the
Wasn't that basically showing through how all the Pakistani rape gangs were treated? Most of the Pakistani grooming gang racism and like ethnic minority bias narrative comes from like one police officer who was interviewed that said, or a few police officers that were interviewed said, oh yeah, we're worried about being called racist and community tensions. That's basically it. There's not actually a huge like analysis of this stuff. And there are far better explanatory reasons for why this was so difficult for police to get involved with. These are highly insular, ethnic enclave communities, and a lot of the abuse was not just happening like out on the street to white girls, it was happening within these communities with like foster homes that were like staffed and populated by Muslims that didn't speak English. And there were whole families and like businesses where people didn't speak English, or they didn't want to talk to the police because of the culture of silence. There's a whole bunch of reasons that it was so poorly handled by the police for so many years that aren't just, we love minorities so much, we're going to let them rape people. But they always just want to go with this retarded narrative that basically England just loves brown people so much now that they want them to rape. That's like what they think. That's what they argue.
discrepancies in sentencing.
That's not true. They're not black boys. They're just boys and men.
Yes, yes, just men. Men from no particular place or origin.
I believe the actual term is drill rappers.
Andrew Tate fans. In the review, Lammy said sentencing decisions needed greater scrutiny and judges must be equipped with more information about the offender's background. He recommended greater use of pre-sentence reports, which is the measure that the community sentence rather than the custodial sentence that's being recommended for black trans Muslims, which are drawn up by the probation service to provide judges with information about the character and circumstances of the offender. So basically, all Labour's work is...
No, they used to say they didn't want to look racist, and that was based off of like one quote from a police officer in one report like years ago. Yeah, they used to say that. No, they don't say that anymore. They don't say that anymore. They literally claim that we like fetishize minorities, that we're like allowing Muslims to take over. That's what they actually claim now. That's what retarded right-wingers have actually been reduced to arguing. It's just the most deranged propaganda in the fucking world.
To fruition over years of working for Hope Not Hate or publishing race-grifting reports that say that we should have anti-racist policing systems, read racist against white people, and they're saying they're not doing it exactly while it's all happening. This is very unpopular. It's the reason they run from this. So YouGov did some polling about this, and the magical 72% came out against...
It's been a while since I've seen the 72%, actually.
Yeah, I know. It was only in the pandemic. But this time, I think it's, well, probably on the side of legitimate, because most sane thinking people think, yeah, I don't think if someone's black but they stab, I don't know, untold numbers of children, they shouldn't go to prison. That would be weird.
Okay. This is such retarded polling to use. 72% of Britons are opposed to judges taking into consideration whether an offender is from an ethnic, religious, or cultural minority when sentencing them. Yeah, because obviously the implication of that question is basically that they will get a different sentence to a white person, a white Christian person, because they are from a minority background. That's the implication people are going to take away from that question. But the point of the policy is actually to make sure that sentencing is in line with each other across different populations. That's actually the point of the policy. So yeah, I'm sure when you ask people this question, the response goes, no, of course I wouldn't want people to be sentenced differently based on their race. Yeah, we all agree on that. But the point is that people are being sentenced differently based on their race, and you need to make an effort to stop that. That's the point of the policy. Because, you know, they did the report, they found that there was a systemic bias in sentencing that you haven't contended with in this whole video.
To do that, wouldn't it? Yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. But it doesn't really matter what public opinion is, because it turns out that we have a state broadcaster as well that's really interested in propagandizing us using our own taxpayer money. The BBC are doing a migrant series this week.
Yes.
This is about Swindon.
No, I made
absolute
this.
post-apocalyptic hellhole that Carl has stationed this particular studio in, and this is just them interviewing migrants living in Swindon. Here's an Indian woman, here's a man who's trying to bring his wife over from Kenya, I think it is.
No.
And here's a Latvian woman.
No.
I'm sure these people are probably, you know, they could be perfectly nice.
All right, Latvian women can stay.
I thought you might
Oh,
say
you've
that.
gone for the Berlusconi
Yeah, the
approach to
Berlusconi
immigration.
approach, all right?
This is the
Latvian
Ali G,
women can stay,
the Ali G
all right?
immigration policy.
Yes.
Well, she said Swindon is quite multicultural and convenient. We're just blessed to have so much countryside around. We were joking off air that we need to start convincing lots of the migrants that the English countryside is populated with jinns, and only a sufficient level of English people with stone churches will keep them at bay.
I'm beginning to be in favour of reintroducing.
Okay, that's
more
mildly
to
funny.
countryside.
That's a mildly funny comment.
Purely for the sake of rewilding, we need to return to the roots of our ancestors, etc., etc.
Yes. Well, here's another article in the series. How migrant workers are saving the NHS from crisis. Now, again, remember, if you're paying your TV license fee, which if you
But
don't
I just
watch
don't know
live
why
TV,
you're
you
like
don't need to.
seething over. Oh, migrants say the town's really welcoming. Oh, what a terrible fucking thing. What a terrible thing. People who come here think it's a welcoming place. It's very friendly. Oh, terrible. Truly, what a horrible situation.
You're paying for this. You're paying for your gaslighting. It is gaslighting because there's some facts I don't mention here. I'm just going to rattle them off. 95% of visas every single year goes to migrants who are net tax detriments, according to the Centre for Policy Studies. Well known for Carl Williams on that data. Only 3% of annual immigrants are doctors and nurses. Bear in mind, we cap the number of medical school places in the UK for UK applicants because we don't want to devalue the profession. Bringing in lots of foreign doctors with lower quality training who commit, according to far-right rag The Guardian, mass industrial-scale qualifications fraud and commit more medical malpractice.
An entire division of interpreters on hand.
Yeah, funnily enough, that's not devaluing the profession, but too many overqualified white British doctors devaluing the profession. Oh, and by the way, as for health and social care, Zimbabwean health and social care workers were outnumbered by dependents 10-1, Nigerians 4-1, and Ghanaians a comfy 2-1. And by the way, all of those health and social care workers are, of course, on taxpayer cash, so they're still draining more than they're ever.
Okay, why do you think there's so many immigrants working health and social care jobs? Do we think it's because white British people are just so desperate to work health and social care jobs? There's just nothing white British people want to do more than look after a bunch of dying, miserable old people. In fact, they're willing to do it for free. Or do you think it's because these are incredibly low-paying jobs that they can't fill with the native population? Because you know, we're an aging population. Because there aren't a bunch of new young people popping up, white British young people popping up, ready to work jobs, ready to go and work in health and social care.
Putting in
So which group were outnumbered by their dependents?
Zimbabweans.
Zimbabweans.
It was so much better when it was Rhodesia. Anyway, point being, none of that's mentioned here. And Aylmer, who's a fantastic anon that you should be following on Twitter, one of the best British anons, many people are saying, has documented this series, and it turns out that only one of the articles, might be charitably characterised as critical of migration. The rest of them are just all puff pieces saying why you should have infinity immigrants bans refund
I'll
at
do
your
an
expense.
interview. If they want a variety of perspectives, I'll go on. Go on, bring me on, BBC.
You won't be able to print half of it, but it would be very, very amusing. Look,
And just like random BBC articles. I don't even know, are these even like... Are these front page BBC News articles, or are these like local? Like, what's going on here? I don't know what we're even being shown here. What time frame is this from? Like, what am I being shown here? What is this supposed to mean? Oh, here's a picture on Twitter. Isn't BBC so captured by immigration? Great. Thanks, man. I can draw so many strong conclusions from this random collage of images.
why you should have infinity immigrants bans refund
I'll
at
do
your
an
expense.
interview. If they want a variety of perspectives, I'll go on. Go on, bring me on, BBC.
You won't be able to print half of it, but it would be very, very amusing. Look,
You can have the police standing by for the end of the interview. It's all right.
point being, this is all being done to us by the police, by the most unpopular government in British history, by the taxpayer-funded state broadcaster. It's all being imposed on us top down.
Dude, Starmer's going to make these people see.
Wanting to reduce migration, and that's when they were underestimating net migration by a factor
The
of 10.
Starmer comeback is going to be crazy. Do not count Starmer out. Right? I understand the approval rating was pretty bad. I understand they've been pretty unpopular. Shit's not going their way. Do not count Starmer out. It would be a huge mistake. A huge mistake. Chad counted Starmer out immediately. I remember back when, I said this in his chat earlier. I remember back when Starmer got in. He was like, oh, I can't believe, not Corbyn. Oh, we're socialist. I want a commie. I want a commie. I want a commie like Corbyn. I was like, no. Starmer's awesome. And now look where we are. He sees it now. Everyone's going to see it soon.
70,000 rather than at least 700,000.
I did hear about the reform news, yeah.
A year.
I haven't actually
we are
looked
being
at myself yet.
ideologically captured by Islamic activists in all of our top institutions. As of yet, there's no party that either has the plan to do anything about it, nor a viable path to power in order to do something about it. So I suggest, given the crown is in the gutter and covered in muck, someone picks it up real quick.
Islander issue 3 is now available to purchase from shop.lotus.com.
Dude, why is this ad read?
And is the next step in the story that we are telling with this magazine. For this issue, we have collected piercing and esoteric, and is the next.
Someone picks it up real quick.
Islander issue 3 is now available to purchase from shop.lotus.com, and is the next step in the story that we are telling with this magazine.
Gay.
For this issue, we have collected piercing and esoteric essays from the finest right-wing minds on the theme of our civilizational winter.
The finest right-wing minds. Myself. Dude.
Each of our authors is an expert in bringing forth the most important hidden revelations from the lowest reaches of the soul, and it has all been beautifully rendered in a medievalist revivalist aesthetic. For this issue, I commissioned a new translation of the ancient Anglo-Saxon poem, The Wanderer, and have written a companion essay exploring how it is a reflection of our modern experience. I personally feel that this is the most important thing I've ever written, so I will be looking forward to your feedback on it. We have resolved our distribution issues, with the magazines being printed in advance of the orders, so we can guarantee
what is
that you will
this? This
receive
is
a
so
copy once you are
gay.
ordering it. You will also receive emailed updates so you can see exactly where it is. Hopefully, issue 3
Dude,
can
this
provide
is
you
so
with the space
gay.
and context to
It's crazy people fall for this. They actually Sargon's gonna make crazy money off of the fucking right-wing dweebs that watch his channel. This is the gayest shit in the world.